Hey, everybody, and welcome to IndieQuest, a celebration of the indie and obscure, an indie video game podcast that sometimes interviews game developers. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, and I'm here with my co-host, Steve. How's it going, dude?
It's going good, although I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if it'll show up on the audio because my buddy Josh here is a good editor, but I got me a case of the squeaky chairs going on. I need to find some WD-40 in this house. It's not good.
I have that problem too. My chair's 90% plastic, so I just creaky plastic under my big butt all day long. So
I'm trying to stay like as perfectly still as I can while we're talking so that I don't get
I can't hear it on Discord, but they like filter more than like the local recording. You know what I mean? So
well, I'll trust you to snip it out of there for me. But anyways, dude, how's life? What's good? What's exciting?
Just kind of just chilling today. It's been a good day. I don't know. Nothing really going on. Usually I have a million things going on, but I felt like today was just like kind of kicking my feet up, relaxing. And then like the other day, I was just kind of like looking for indie games to play like I do for this show and just general, like, you know, just general life stuff. Like, I gotta find some cool games to play. And I came across this Kickstarter for a game called Whisker Squadron. So I hit you up, was like, this game looks awesome. And then I was like looking into like the developers and stuff. And I was like, I wonder if I just DM this guy if he'd come on the show. So I did. And we got an interview today with the lead developer for Whisker Squadron, which is a game on Kickstarter. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. Like you said, you sent me the video, and immediately it's a very striking game. You understand its influence very quickly in Star Fox, but also it really looks like, I don't know, it's one of those things where I see it and I'm like, oh, that's definitely a game I'm going to play as soon as I possibly can.
Yeah, and we definitely talked to him about all the like design thought processes and everything about it, but it's definitely not just another Star Fox clone, or like it's not trying to just be Star Fox, you know, the reimagining. It has its own flavor to it. It's a roguelike. They do a lot of unique things with the game, and I don't know, I was just super excited to have the dev on and chat about it.
Yeah, me too. And I've been a fan of the previous game, Race the Sun, and we talk about this with Aaron, but you can see a lot of the influence of Race the Sun in this game, which I think is pretty cool to kind of be switching genres, and yet you can still really feel the backbone of the previous game in the new one. So it seems like a pretty exciting project for them, and certainly is going to be awesome to check out.
All right, so let's just roll right into the interview. We've got Aaron Sanfilippo of Flippfly on to talk about his upcoming game, Whisker Squadron, and all about his Kickstarter and his design process and thought process. So let's dive into it. Hey everybody, and welcome to our interview with a game dev. It's really exciting. I'm really excited to have Aaron Sanfilippo of Flippfly today to talk about his Kickstarter for Whisker Squadron. How you doing, man?
Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so we just saw a trailer, like I just saw it on Twitter and I was like, this looks really cool. This is like Star Fox meets a roguelike. So what's the basic pitch for Whisker Squadron, and where'd you come up with the idea for the game?
Yeah, the basic pitch, I guess, is, it's our take on forward-scrolling aerial combat, kind of inspired by Star Fox, as well as our own Race the Sun. So there's a lot of procedural generation, and all the characters are cats. So that's in a nutshell.
that last one, it feels like an important to bold that third bullet point there.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of the follow up to our 2013 game Race the Sun, which was I guess an endless flying game with no combat or anything like that. And so I've always wanted to make something that was a little bit more combat focused since then. So this is sort of our version of that game.
I'm glad you mentioned Race the Sun too. Watching the trailer for the Kickstarter, it really seems like Whisker Squadron looks like a almost like a beefed up version of the Race the Sun. Like you can really feel the Race the Sun DNA
Mhm.
in it. So, one, is that intentional? And then two, I'm wondering what are the areas that you're most excited to sort of flesh out from the work you'd already done in Race the Sun?
Sure. Yeah, it is intentional, and we actually started the project by just copying the Race to Sun code base and everything. So it literally just
Hmm.
started as Race to Sun, and then I kind of just like mashed it into more of what we were looking for, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, you know, it was interesting to iterate on that, and then try to figure out like the ideal speed. It's kind of weird going back to Race to Sun now because the ship movement speed in Race to Sun is like 2 or 3 times faster than in Whisker Squadron now, so it just feels like insanely fast. So yeah, it was, Star Fox was definitely a big inspiration, but we're also not trying to make like a Star Fox clone here. So
Mm-hmm.
we're definitely like trying to push things in interesting directions and just seeing where the design leads, you know. So we've got elements of procedural generation and things like rings that increase your multiplier, which is kind of a mechanic we pulled over from Race of Sun. Um, some other new features too.
One of the pitches on your actual Kickstarter page is that you have like one life, and it's pretty much just try to get to the end. And then when you get to the end, and it's always different every single time, of course, because like you said, it's procedurally generated. Even the bosses are procedurally generated. So, like, what's the thought process designing all of this to make it feel fun and fair and not just brutally challenging throughout the entire thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, we definitely like roguelikes. There's a pretty interesting, I don't know, I don't know. I mean, it's a genre, but it's also just like this whole set of design principles that kind of come
Mm-hmm.
together into something that's really compelling, you know. And it's not always balanced. And I think that's kind of the fun, you know. Sometimes roguelikes like Spelunky will just throw something that is kind of brutally, punishing at you, and it's like, well, one
Mm-hmm.
out of one out of every 50 times that happens, and it's like it's entertaining if nothing else, you know. And so, just there's a certain appeal in just not knowing what's going to happen. And some games really dial into that well, like Slay the Spire is another one where it's just like some random combination of things just gets really exciting in a particular run, and then it feels like this is the one, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just trying to hone in on that random, I guess, lottery feel almost, to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think to the most recent example I can think of is Hades, and how it's what seems like the trick, and what I don't envy you on having to work out the game design for is how do you make enough of those runs feel like the lottery, feel like the winning run, where this is going to be the time that you can go the whole distance.
Mhm.
Um, and so, I mean, I assume there has to be some kind of sort of like natural progression, even though it's procedural. You'll have to build in certain mechanics or certain things as people get deeper in. Is it tricky to design for a smooth difficulty curve with so many pieces being procedural?
Yeah, and that's something that we're still working on. Like we've mostly been focused on the first act of the game, which
Mm.
takes about 15 minutes to play through. So it's going to be divided into 3 acts, and we're still working out like exactly what we want that difficulty ramp to look like. So yeah, it's interesting, but it's also very much under our control. So the game is divided up into these acts, and then an act has a progression of worlds in it, and there'll be a little bit of randomization within those worlds, but generally speaking, like the act will always start with this particular world, primitus or whatever, and then within those worlds, there's actual procedural generation that happens there too. So we can define the patterns and the enemy types and all that stuff within each level as well. So it's definitely something that we can tune, but it is just kind of like a trial and error process. Um, and as far as difficulty goes, it's interesting because I think part of what's appealing about roguelikes is the fact that you don't beat them on the first run or maybe even the 20th run.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just,
Yeah.
it's punishing, but you're getting better, and that's a satisfying thing, you know? And we want to tap into that, but we also don't want to run into the situation like for me personally, like with Spelunky 2, I've probably played it 100 hours at this point, and I think I'm just not a patient, focused enough player to like get much better than that. And maybe if I played it
Hmm.
like another 500 hours, like I'd power through that. But it really feels like I hit some kind of limit on my abilities like halfway through the game, and then it
Yeah.
just kind of becomes not fun for me anymore. So we're trying to figure out how to find that balance, and also just recognizing that like some players don't have the same reflexes and stuff. And I don't want to just like design this game for one player with the ideal combination of reflexes and dexterity and, focus or whatever. So one of the things that we're doing is we have this whole gameplay mods system where when you start a mission, you have a whole list of switches that you can kind of play with to make the game harder in various ways. And then
Hmm.
there's a whole accessibility category where you can do the opposite and just say, okay, I want to play it at 50% speed or 10% speed even. So you can make the game almost arbitrarily as easy as you want it to be. And we're just kind of like leaving it up to players to decide if they want to use those options or not, which is probably going to be controversial, but it's like, I want anybody who's interested in this game to be able to play it and have fun with it. Um, so,
I appreciate things like that, not even from person to person, but even just from day to day, right? Like sometimes I want to just chill out and unwind with a game that I know I like, but I might want to turn down a bunch of the difficult aspects. Like in Race the Sun, for example, there was that mode that was just like a zen chill,
mhm.
just sort of swap back and forth, not really too much risk involved. And I probably played that more than anything else
Mm,
because a lot of times I just want to conk out and in that case listen to some chill music and just kind of
interesting.
unwind.
I think you're the first person who's ever told me they played that mode more than the other ones. The interesting thing about that game is that a lot of people told us, which we didn't anticipate, that they play it to relax.
Hmm.
And I think I didn't appreciate like the the zone it puts you in mentally when you play, where you're just kind of in that flow state or whatever, where it's intense because you have to focus, but just that act of being in focus.
It's like the Tetris effect when you're playing a really intense game of Tetris, and it's getting faster and faster. It's the same
Right,
mindset you get into, yeah.
right. So yeah,
Yeah, I've always said that I'm the weird one because my go-to like de-stress game is Super Meat Boy, just because
mhm,
I'm so familiar with it. And once you kind of know how to get through those levels, you're just sort of executing on the muscle memory of it, and it's
right,
very
right.
relaxing. And that mode felt very similar because it's like I'd start to recognize the patterns of buildings and things, and just
Mhm.
know how to weave and how to move.
Yeah, yep, totally.
So this is a roguelike. Is this one of those roguelikes where each run you just start from the beginning, or is there some carryover between each run?
Right. We're still kind of working out the design for that, but right now we're leaning towards the former, where it's pretty much you're starting from scratch every time. We will
Okay.
have some unlocks, so we're going to have like additional characters that you can unlock by achieving certain things. And we have a whole ship customization system. Right now, we're mostly planning for like decals and, like vanity items and stuff that just kind of look
Mm.
cool. And it's fun to go through that checklist of things and see what you can achieve. We might have some other things you can unlock as well, but generally speaking, we're not aiming to make the game easier as you keep playing it, you know. Um,
Yeah. I do like the $500 reward tier where you get to add your own animal, your own character,
it's
basically
going
your own
pretty
pet.
fast. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a cool idea, especially like just I don't like to have I don't have the 500 to put on it, but if I did, I would because just having my cat in the game that would be
Yeah.
awesome. It's such a cool idea.
Cool. Yeah. We were pretty excited about that. And then, it occurred to us maybe like a day before the campaign launched that, if there were like people who wanted to put their animal persona in the game, like there's no reason we shouldn't let them do that as well. And so we kind of
Yeah,
had a little nod to that in the campaign as well. And I think it's actually like people from the furry community who are most into that right now, which is really awesome. It's like it's such a cool,
Mhm.
community, and it's really cool to support them or like give them something that they can get into. So yeah, we might end up expanding that out because those that tier is almost sold out here at this point. Just trying to figure out how much extra textures and stuff we can fit in the game with memory.
yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, If it just ends up being me flying through fields and fields of pictures of people's cats, I'm totally down for that too.
Oh
So
yeah, so
it's kind
that's
of
it.
win-win.
So there's two rewards there. So there's one where you can put your cat or your persona in the game, your animal persona in the game. So that's the $500 tier. But then at $200 you can send us a picture and that will be a part of the secret Easter egg level. And so I don't know
Hmm.
if you remember Star Fox, I had these like super secret levels where it's like you shoot some asteroid 10 times or something and it opens up a portal and it's just like way off the beaten path. So we're
Hmm.
gonna have something along those lines and it'll just be a totally random like Kickstarter reward level. So people can send us their own pictures or a picture of their pet or a picture of whatever, the character they drew or we'll probably like put them on a cube and then you shoot the cube and it'll explode and their name comes out or something along those lines. So
Oh,
uh,
That's awesome.
so yeah, I think that hasn't connected as well as I thought it would with people, but maybe we're just not doing a good enough job of selling it.
I'm actually wondering. You mentioned the splitting of the levels, so and on the Kickstarter you can see sort of like a map of it too. But traditionally in Star Fox and some other games like this, you'll find like hidden side exits that'll take you into different worlds or down different paths. Is it what's it like designing around that when everything is procedural? Do you have to ensure that certain chunks of the level appear that would let you trigger those alternative paths, or
That's a good question. Where, like we had a pretty early idea for like a portal level, and we're trying to figure out what is the design for that. And so one thought was like, do you want to make it so that every single run gives you an opportunity to do that, or is this just a random choice that comes and goes? Um, I think what we settled on was something like if you reach a certain multiplier level, then there's a chance that enemies will drop some kind of like a token, and if you get three of those tokens, it would open up a portal on the map. But we're still kind of working through that. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the thing with I guess roguelikes is like not every run is going to have an opportunity to do everything. Um,
mm-hmm.
although with Spelunky, it's like you can always get to the black market or whatever. Technically, it's
Yeah,
not always like practical, but it's always possible.
that's true. I had a question about the story. Is there a story in this game? I mean, it's a procedural nature of the game. Do you guys have like an idea for a story that's gonna play out
Yeah,
through all the runs?
it's a light
Yeah.
story. We're actually we haven't announced who they are yet, but we're talking to a narrative designer, writer, um,
Hmm.
and
Cool.
she's going to help develop the characters and the backstory a little bit more. I don't know how far we'll take it. It's like right now, it's the story consists of you know a little blurb of text before each mission, and then just random character dialogue back and forth.
Hmm.
But even if that's all it ends up being, I think having some kind of an interesting backstory to be a foundation for that would be cool.
And will it have the traditional Star Fox dialogue? Is what I need to know. The blah,
Oh,
blah, blah, blah.
we keep going back and forth on that, and it's a bunch of people have told us like they want a stretch goal to be like voice acting and all this stuff, and it's
Hmm.
what we're actually leaning towards trying. We haven't done it yet, but we're gonna try actually using like real cat vocalizations, and like cats kind of chatter when they see birds and stuff, and so just getting like cat chatters and meows and purrs and hisses and stuff like that, and just try like mash them together and see how it comes out. So I don't know if it'll work, but we'll try it.
That's awesome. I
I love it.
I'll be pumped to see it there.
Yeah, we do have the little animated faces though, so
Ah,
it's like a three frame.
you're already halfway there.
Yep, already halfway there.
So then, kind of thinking of it, I guess like the entire process of developing up to where you are so far. I know you're still very much in the design process, but are there any parts of the game that you're particularly excited about, or that you think are particularly cool features that haven't really been represented through the Kickstarter? Or do you think that the Kickstarter is a really good picture of everything that the game has?
We're still like working on revealing stretch goals. There's a few things that we're kind of on the fence about. So the first one that we revealed was split screen co-op, and that's a thing that we're pretty excited to get working.
Mm-hmm.
Probably hit that stretch goal this week, and then beyond that, we're looking at additional characters and we're going to have some form of ship customization, but we probably want to like, take that as far as we can. So that might be another stretch goal. Um, Another thing we're looking at is whether we want to ship the level editor as part of the game, like we did with Race of Sun. And so
Mm.
that game had a built-in level editor on the PC version that lets you make your own worlds and then share them with the community. So this game's a bit more complex than Race of Sun in terms of like what you want to have in those levels and missions and stuff, but um, we've also made it much more powerful and interesting. So I guess it's just a matter of like, do we want to polish that up and support that whole thing, and is it a thing that the community would be interested in and stuff like that? So
That would be awesome. I can't think if I've ever seen another game in that style, in kind of like the uh, like rail shooter genre that lets you build your own levels. So I could see that being pretty popular, at least amongst like a certain very diehard group of fans of this genre.
yeah. Well, the cool thing is like as long as you can get like 5 or 10 really dedicated content creators in your community, then you can get a lot of really cool stuff for everybody. So it might be worth doing. Um, but yeah, it's like it's additional development time and cost too. So just have to
Yeah,
weigh
very true.
our priorities.
Was it? I've never actually messed around with it because I have the Vita version that came out through limited run. I think it was.
Okay.
Um, was that pretty popular on the PC mode, the level editor for Race the Sun?
It was moderately popular. I mean, I think the biggest thing that made it worth adding was that Steam actually, Valve featured it on Steam when we added the level editor and workshop
Oh,
support. So that got us
nice.
a bunch more visibility for the game. We had like a level design contest with a cash prize or something like that soon afterwards, just to try to like jumpstart the community a little bit. There were some pretty cool levels out there. I think we had 10 or 15 that were like really highly polished. And then I don't know how much people actually played them. I should probably look at stats on that, but so I would say it was worth it.
Nice. Oh, I love the art style for the game. I want to say that I like that low poly look. And then in the trailer and then on the Kickstarter, it does say that you guys are planning to improve it. Like you literally said, every week it's getting better, like the art style and everything. Like what other like bells and whistles are you gonna add like to make it look more pretty as you go along?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a matter of just like continually refining. So like, 2 weeks ago the characters didn't animate when they talked, and now they do. So they actually
Yeah.
feel more alive and stuff like that. We've got like an outline, kind of like a toon shader outline on everything in the world now, but it's like doesn't quite have exactly the look we want. So I just need to spend a few days working on the shader code for that and stuff like that. And then we've got 2 more acts to develop, and we just got all kinds of ideas for like how to push things even further. So yeah, I don't know exactly what's in store, but it's like Sean is really motivated to like tinker with that stuff. So I'm sure it'll look even better when it's done.
Yeah, very striking. I think it looks the trailer does a good job selling it. And again, like with many aspects, you can see the where Race the Sun is its kind of prototype in many ways, and then this is like a much more
Sure.
rich version of that.
Mhm. I still would love to make an actual Race to Sun sequel that was just carrying on from those mechanics someday, but we'll see.
Race the Moon someday.
That's what everybody says. Something like that, yeah.
Writes itself. It's a little hanging fruit, but I
Yeah.
have to take it. Before we wrap up,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious. Are there other influences? The Star Fox influence kind of wears itself on its sleeve, but are there other games that you're pulling from other sources of inspiration that you're also rolling into Whisker Squadron?
Yeah, I guess a few roguelike type games. I played a lot of Spelunky last year, and that gave me a bunch of ideas that I wanted to try. FTL was a game I played for a long time,
Mm.
and just in particular, their kind of dynamic events that happen as you're traversing through the maps. And so, you might happen upon some node on the map, and you're given a choice. It's like, okay, you came to this planet, and there's like spiders terrorizing the population. Do you want to go down and help them or not? And then, if you choose to, you might lose a crewmate, but you'll gain something else in return. So, and then FTL kind of like, or not FTL, Slay the Spire kind of had similar events, but with more predictable outcomes. And so we're kind of like pulling from those games in that sense, where between levels you'll have the occasional choice to make like that, and that'll affect various things in the game. So it's a pretty simple system right now, but we're looking at making that more interesting as well. Like, for instance, your wingmate might make a bet with you that you can't get a certain ranking on the next level or something like that. And then that's kind of like a choice you can opt into or not for a chance at getting a bigger reward or something like that, or
Mm.
maybe somebody asks you for help and then you can like go off the beaten path and like try to rescue their friend or something like that. Um, so yeah, we want to make it to feel exciting and kind of interesting in more ways than just like shooting things.
I mean, the
Awesome.
shooting things is fun too, so it's kind of win-win.
Yeah, yep. And I guess the other thing that I think really makes the game stand out is the procedurally generated bosses. So that's a thing that it's still a work in progress, but I think it's interesting because as far as we're aware, like no game has really tried this before, at least in 3D. I'm really keen to see like what players think of it when it's done.
Yeah, the snippets of it so far are very striking. I could say that like they look really fun to play. So yeah,
Cool, thanks. Yeah, it's we need a lot more variety in there, I think, and some more interesting like movements and stuff like that. But I think it's going in a pretty good direction.
Do you know at this point how much of those will be procedurally generated? I mean, the design of them, the arenas, the attacks, is all of that sort of randomized, or are certain things going to be static to different levels?
Yeah, I mean the that's a good question. I think the level itself for the procedural boss fights is pretty much the same every time.
Mm.
Um, the bosses themselves are an interesting challenge because we want them to be procedural, but we also want, as a roguelike, you kind of want to be able to learn patterns and recognize things and figure out how to beat it. So we don't want it to be so unique every time that you can't learn it. So the way they work is it's like there's a basic airframe and it kind of has movement patterns that you can learn, and then it has various attachments on it, and those attachments can kind of have their own attachments, and they do various things like shoot lasers in a spinning pattern, or shoot out enemies that kind of like fly at you and stuff like that. So you kind of learn to recognize these attachments and what they do and how to avoid them. But sometimes they also combine in really interesting ways too. So
Yeah, that's going to be really exciting. Boss fights tend to be some of my favorite parts of games, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that whole system shakes out.
yeah, and I think a lot of people are skeptical, and I totally get it. It's like I think what makes most boss fights cool is the cinematic nature of them and just the drama of like you're beating this particular boss and he has a big shield, and stage two is this and stage three is this. And so kind of trying to like break down what's good about boss fights and see if I can kind of abstract that out and then
Mm.
recreate it procedurally. So that's an interesting challenge that I think hopefully sets us apart and makes people like convinces people that we're not just cloning Star Fox or something. uh, so we'll
So
see.
I mean, it sounds awesome. So I'm looking forward to seeing the results of it.
Cool.
Josh, anything else? Otherwise, we can close her up.
no, I think that's about it. I know your game's on Steam, so people should go wishlist it over there, Whisker Squadron, and on Kickstarter as well, right? And you guys have completely got funded, and basically you're just asking for stretch goals. You're just trying to reach past your
Yeah.
goals now, huh? Yeah,
Yep, we hit our initial 30,000 goal. I think we're at about 36 and a half right now. I would love to hit 50 or 60 just to give us a little bit of buffer to, to do everything we want to do. But we'll see how things go.
do you have a
Really
release
exciting.
window? Oh, sorry.
Release window, yeah.
Yeah,
Quarter one in 2022. So sometime March, April, May, or January, February, March, May, somewhere in there.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exciting. And we'll have the link to that in our show notes. But for anyone that is uh, not willing to click a link right now, you can just go on a Kickstarter, look up Whisker Squadron, and you'll find it. Punch it into Google; it shows up there too.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, again, thank you so much for taking the time to share a little bit about the design process and just in general, sort of humor our enthusiasm for the game because it looks so cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
No, I appreciate
yeah,
you guys talking to me.
Definitely. Is there anything else you want to plug anywhere that people can find you other than the Kickstarter before we say goodbye?
I mean, you could look up Flippfly on Twitter, and it's retweeting me constantly. So if you do want to follow me, you can find me there too. Otherwise, whiskersquadron.com. I'll take you there.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you, Aaron, for stopping by and chatting with us.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
So I really enjoyed that interview. I thought it was pretty insightful. I am we're obviously excited about the game. I think the enthusiasm is shown throughout this entire episode so far. But yeah, definitely go check out Whisker Squadron. Like I said, wishlisted on Steam, and just check out Race the Sun and all their stuff. I think that this project's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. But let me ask you, man, because we couldn't get into it during the interview because it's pretty selfish for me to take time out of our interview to ask you questions that I could just ask you later on, which is what I'm doing right now.
Okay, let's do it.
So, what kind of Star Fox fan are you? Hit me with your Star Fox history.
I love the N64 one, and that's about it. No, Assault's pretty fun. No, what's the one on the GameCube where it was Dinosaur Planet and they turned it into Star
Fox Adventures?
Adventures, yes. So those two are the ones I like the most. I like the original a lot. I actually have the 3DS one, and I play it. I haven't played it in a while, to be honest, but I do love that game, and it's one of those you can just sit down and play in a couple hours and just have a good time,
Yeah. I'm going to spin your words and twist it against you here. So, we're running an indie podcast where we interviewed someone making kind of a spiritual follow-up to Star Fox. And your favorite non-indie Star Fox game is the one where you run around on the ground and don't even fly in the ship. You like the Zelda clone? Is that what I'm hearing?
I like both of them. I said I like the N64 one, and it's on 3DS. I was pointing at my shelf, the 3DS shelf. That's right there. Yeah, but Star Fox 3D, which is the N64 one that's on. Is that DS or 3DS game? Actually, thinking about it, I don't even know. But it's on the DS. It's on a handheld. I played it.
Yeah, there's the DS one, and then there was the 3DS remake. But, okay, this is interesting, because I know right now everyone is like, I already heard the interview, I'm already deleting this and moving on to the next podcast. You guys can just, you're not even talking about an indie game right now. But I was thinking about it. This genre is kind of underserved in the indie market, at least as far as I'm aware. If anyone out there knows of, rail shooters or Star Fox style games that have come out from indie studios, I'd love to know about them, because it already feels like a pretty underserved genre. And when you do see examples, it's usually from AAA devs, people making Star Fox, Panzer Dragoon, stuff like that.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure it exists because Steam has so many games on it, and itch and all that. So it's not one that I think about because I don't know. I think Star Fox is just underrated anyway. And then it's like, okay, let's do like a small version of the underrated game already, I guess, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint that. But I think that's what really gravitated me towards this is like, I don't really see this that often, especially from a small team. So.
Yeah. And so far from what I've seen in the trailers and stuff, and from talking to the developer, it sounds really cool. And I think I really do think the procedural thing will be a nice twist on it. And if nothing else, give it a lot of really good replay value.
Yeah. That's like the biggest hook for me. I'm like, it takes a lot for me to like really dive into a roguelike, but just the idea of having just kind of like that everlasting gobstopper, quote unquote Star Fox clone, even though it's not really, kind of is, but kind of isn't. I'm pretty excited for that.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. So again, for the ninth time for everybody, if you haven't already caught it, this game's name is Whisker Squadron. You can find it on Kickstarter. The link will be in the show notes if I remember to remind Josh to put them in the show notes. But either way, Google is your friend. It's been backed already, and now they're just hitting their stretch goals, and I can't wait to see what gets revealed.
Cool. Well, this is going to be a nice and short and sweet episode of IndieQuest, but that's fine. We've had like big episodes recently, so we're just going to be like, here's this cool interview you guys get to listen to. Go check out the game. And yeah, just have a good time with that. So let's close out the show. I'm ready. I'm ready to get out of here. How about you?
Yeah. Plus, you know what? This is your second episode in a week. You just got back-to-backs. All right? That's exciting for you. And we know when we need to just step back, get out of the way, and let the cool people talk. And that's what we're doing today. So.
All right. So thanks, you guys, as always, for listening to IndieQuest. Have any feedback for these interviews? Have you been enjoying the couple we've had? What other developers would you like to see? If you tag them and maybe be like, hey, IndieQuest wants to talk to you guys, or you guys should go on IndieQuest, maybe they'd come on and talk to us. You never know. So,
I mean, we can only hope.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly usually just taking that first initiative and just asking. A lot of times I feel like these devs will be like, hey, yeah, sure, I have 30 minutes for you and stuff, so, but still. It's always kind of nice to be like, oh, hey, Edmund McMillan, I think IndieQuest wants to talk to you. You talk to him about Super Meat Boy, and
Don't go bugging McMillan, but
yeah,
appreciate the sentiment.
Yeah, I was just joking around. Okay, jokes aside, thanks for listening to the show. You can find me on Twitter @FranticSociety. Where can they find you on the interwebs?
Find me on Twitter as Blinkoom, and you can find me on Twitch, sometimes streaming indie games, also at Blinkoom.
Awesome. You can find the podcast on Twitter @IndieQuestPod. And we got an email address. What is the email address? Where can they send us cool questions and comments and concerns and all that fun business?
Well, if you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, oh, man, this was a really great episode, but this was just a one-way conversation. It was just Steve and Josh talking to me. It does not have to be like that. You can get into whatever email client it is that you use. Punch in indiequestpod@gmail.com. Shoot us a note. Let us know what you're thinking of the show. Let us know what indie games you're playing. Let us know what other rail shooters I completely forgot about when I was talking about indie rail shooters. Or, you know what? Just say sup. We're always happy to hear from you. And as past episodes have indicated, we love to read your emails out on the show.
Awesome. And we're also part of the Polymedia Network. We have a bunch of cool shows over there. If you haven't checked it out, go over there, man. We got Petey's Power Hour, where she sits down and talks about alcohol, and has a cool guy with a really nice hair on there named Josh, and they talked about rum, and that was pretty fun.
They also talked about SpongeBob, which was pretty good.
yeah, I had to make it silly. Also, over there, we have Tales of the Lesser Medium. Video game narratives are kind of silly sometimes. They make no sense, so they break it down very analytically, very seriously. They don't talk about butts. They don't talk about... Yeah, it's just like this most serious show you've ever heard, but yeah, I'd say go check it out.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Neil deGrasse Tyson lecture covering the story of video games. But now, if you want something a little more lighthearted, a little less educational, we also have Polykill, which is the other show that I'm on. Basically, it's just imagine two guys, one of them who actually plays and beats video games, and one who doesn't, and, seeing how they can get along odd couple style. Works out pretty well.
We also have Off Kilter. I think it still exists. I'm not sure anymore, but there's old archived episodes of Off Kilter, which is just a fun hangout show. Hopefully it comes back one day. I mean, Briz, I'm talking to you specifically. Hopefully it comes back one day. I miss Off Kilter. Come on, man.
Yeah, or at the very least, you can't make fun of us for having long episodes of our podcast if you're not going to drop something on us.
Exactly. And then, of course, last but not least, I feel like we always say this podcast last, but that does not diminish the quality of it. It's a great show. It's called Drunk Friend. You get SNES Drunk, NES Friend together, and they interview somebody from the YouTube scene, or occasionally other people, and just basically they interview cool people that do cool things. So I really enjoy that show. Yeah.
It seems like the consistent through line for Drunk Friend guests is just people that are very interesting.
Yeah.
And And as general as that sounds, it is really very true and very consistent. So check it out.
As always, thank you guys for hanging out, listening to the show, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Steve, why don't you leave the folks with some nice, kind-hearted words?
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Look forward to Whisker Squadron. Check out the Kickstarter. And as always, as I tell you every episode, be good, take care of yourself, and use the boost to chase.
That's all the shows, right?
There's
6 of them.
Yeah, unless we want to plug IndieQuest.
Also, you can follow IndieQuest. Okay. I guess I found my blooper for the episode. Anyway,